Welcome to Moving Conversations, a podcast for movement professionals by movement professionals. If you coach, train, or teach movement, Pilates, or fitness, then this podcast is for you. With more than 60 years of experience in fitness and Pilates, your hosts, Brian Ritchie and Nora St. John, explore the science of human movement, diving deep into the facts, myths, and common misconceptions, hoping to spark thought and conversation about how we view fitness and movement. Now, let's jump into Moving Conversations. And welcome back to Moving Conversations. I'm Brian Ritchie. Joining me as always is Nora St. John. Good morning, Nora. How you doing?
Quite well, Brian. Spring has sprung, the grass is riz, all the almond trees are blooming, and it's just a happy day here in California. How you doing?
Nice. Pretty good. We survived the storm that hit the East Coast, and we got a little bit of snow, but not that bad. All my friends and relatives that got wiped out all up and down the eastern seaboard. We got a little bit, not too bad. So I'll take what we got. We're getting a warm spell coming. So I can't wait. It's going to be 50s, in a week or so. So that'll be nice. I know it's not for long. I love this whole concept of first winter, second winter. And I never quite understood that until recently. And I thought, yeah, because about the beginning of March, we get a warm spell and my brain immediately says, shorts, t-shirt, awesome. And I start putting away all my warm clothes. And then the next 2 weeks later, it's back in the low 40s and high 30s. And I'm like, oh, it's cold again. Wait, what happened? So yeah, this year I'm expecting that. I'm enjoying the warmth while it lasts, and I know it's not going to last.
Hey, I wanted to, it'd be great for you to put a link. So guys, just so you know, we talked about the Olympics a couple of times ago, and that came about because we were talking about Lindsey Vonn's ACL tear, and then of course her leg break after that. And then Brian sent this quite amazing x-ray of the surgery. They put her leg back together again.
I actually posted it on my
I saw you post it because
feed.
you shared it with me. But check it out if you haven't. And if you're not familiar with like the hardware that goes into putting bones back together, it's just interesting. Yeah, and any of you aren't familiar with that, it's just it's eye-opening is all I can tell you, because it really is carpentry at its most basic, or mechanical engineering, if you want to use that term.
What was it, like 17 screws, 3 plates, on lateral, backside, both, medial, lateral, backside, and you could see it. And I'm explaining this to my kids and my wife, and I said, now you see all these different screws at these different angles. And then they had an animation of how these things are put in, and you could just see their eyes getting huge. And I said, yeah, that's modern science. I mean, way back when, I don't know if they much more than, okay, we'll put it as close as possible and we'll put you in a brace and a cast and let's hope you can walk again. And this is pretty amazing.
It's really amazing. I mean, I don't know if any of you are crazy history nerds as I am, but like the Civil War is really when a whole lot of this kind of surgery started to come about. Like that was when a lot of surgery was created, really, and figured out, because cutting off limbs and all the kind of terrible things they had to do there. But you think about it, like they would have just hopefully manually reset the bones as best they could, which only works if it's a clean break, by the way. Right. And then basically put 2 wooden boards or whatever to keep the leg still for a period of time until it healed up. So the sophistication of all this hardware is just unbelievable. Anyway, I just wanted to pass it on. So check out Brian's Instagram for that, because it's just kind of cool.
It was, when I saw the video, I thought, this is simply amazing. I'm looking forward to 2 years from now, because as much of a go-getter and a genetic wonder as she is, I can't imagine before she's near 100%. And I'm probably guessing closer to 2 years before she's able to do a whole, everything that she wants to do on it. Hopefully she will. You look at something like that. I had a client who had a tibial plateau fracture where the top of it literally shears that off, and it happened skiing. And doctor actually said, chances of you walking normally again are pretty slim to none, but there's some new technologies. And she was fine after that. It took a year. Took a year before she was about 85%. And I don't think she ever went skiing again because she just didn't need to. It was one of
Yeah,
those,
it wasn't really, the risk wasn't worth it.
no, it really wasn't. So for her, it was just, I just want to do what I can do. And she was in her mid 60s at the time. So she didn't have age on her side. So I'm hoping for Lindsay's sake that she just snaps back. And after a year and a half, she's back doing everything she wants to and can resume her life and whatnot.
Yeah.
But man, it's going to be a tough road, but she's determined. She's an athlete. She's got that spirit.
She's got the mindset. She's got the mindset and the discipline, and those are two key things in healing anything that's serious. So hopefully it will all turn out well, and she'll be able to move forward however she wants to, because she's certainly achieved a lot in her career already, and we'll see where she goes now. That's super
exactly
exciting.
One nice thing about, I'm not a huge social media person. I'm begrudgingly sort of wading myself into it more and more each day. But what's nice is you can follow someone like that. So I'll be able to watch her progress every time she does post something. So it's kind of neat that you can sort of keep up with someone a little bit without feeling very stalkerish. It's more of a, as a fan, thinking, okay,
exactly.
how are they doing? So
I can be an
it'll be kind of
anonymous
neat to
fan
watch.
out here, right? I can be an anonymous fan just kind of hanging out in the background, taking a look.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly. All right. Well, last week we talked a lot about things like corrections. We discussed the differences sort of between the movement practices, let's call it that, because we didn't just talk about Pilates and personal training. We also brought yoga into it. So the different movement practices. And I tell people all the time that for me personally, I consider myself a movement professional. I specialize in getting people to move better, and I do it through whatever tools I have available to me. So that's been my mindset. So that's kind of what we discussed. But as a small subsect of what we talked about the continuum of correction, as I have sort of called it. That there is this continuum. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to sort of dive into that. When is correcting right? When is it wrong? How much should you correct? And where is it on that scale? Is there right and is there wrong? Or is there this continuum? So I figured let's dive into it. But before we do that, hit that like and subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Every time you repost, it really helps us out. So I really, really appreciate everybody sharing, liking, subscribing, and all of that. You can reach us at on email through movingcombos@gmail.com. Also check out the Instagram, Moving Combos. That aside, let's jump into our continuum of correction.
So one of the things that we specifically talked about in the last episode, which, if you've read it, if you listen to it, fine, but if not, it doesn't really matter, is this idea of overcorrecting, if you will, like correcting to the point where you don't let somebody move unless everything is perfect, which, certainly can happen, to no corrections at all. Right, just having them just do the thing without any particular cueing or precision. Just get the job done. Lift the thing, move the thing, push the thing, whatever you're doing. And that this really is a continuum. And different clients at different phases of their recovery with different mindsets are going to be at different places along that whole continuum. Right. And so we just wanted to bring that up because we talk a lot about correctives on this podcast. And a lot about ways to think about things and things to do and, things to emphasize. But sometimes you can go a little too far in, one or the other direction. And we just wanted to, again, take that approach of when do you correct? And also when do you give up, which is kind of a funny way to say it, but when do you let it go? Like if you're trying to correct somebody, trying, you're not getting anywhere, when do you just stop and move on? Because I think that's
we've all been there. How many times have I've had the client where you can say it till you're blue in the face, and there are some people who are body dyslexic and who just don't feel what you're trying to say, and even with physical maneuvering of your body getting them in position, they can only do what their body's capable of.
Exactly.
And sometimes
and body mind are capable of, I'd say. Right?
That's a good point.
Mental as much as physical,
Absolutely. I had someone on the reformer doing just a little footwork, up on the toes, heels together. And when you're watching someone and it just doesn't look right. Yes. Everyone else looks one way, and I'm watching this thinking, what's wrong? What is wrong? And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out. And he's bow-legged, so his
Okay.
ankles are a little different. And
Yeah.
I had to really break down the entire process and go,
Right. Like
oh,
what? Where's the weirdness here? Yeah.
because I was trying to seek out the right phrase that might get
Yeah.
him into what I'm looking for. I kept working on it, and we got him better. By the end, he was better. But was he perfect? Far from it. And there was a point where after about, I don't know how many reps of trying, I didn't want to frustrate him to the point of giving up. So it's kind of like, okay, am I hurting him? No. Is he getting benefit out of this? Absolutely. Especially for the reason that I put him on this exercise. He's 100% getting everything that I want out of the reason that I put him here to begin with.
Yeah.
That the extra 5 or 7% of improvement, is that going to make a huge difference today?
Right.
And I just had to let it go.
And I think for me, this is where progress, not perfection. And
Nice.
Pilates is also called contrology. That's what Joseph Pilates called it. And there is a mindset within my profession that leads towards perfection. And again, if you're working with a high level athlete, with a dancer, with somebody where perfection is essentially necessary for their skill, talent, whatever they're doing, that's one thing. But for a lot of my clients, perfection is not what they need. They just need to find a good, comfortable way for them to move. It may be a little on the ugly side, but it's working well, and it's not going to cause any damage. And I don't, don't take that as I'm giving up. Okay. It doesn't mean I'm giving up. It means I'm really trying to find the way for that body to be most in harmony with itself at this time. It may improve, right? It may change over the next 2 or 3 years, but sometimes it takes that long to really make the changes you want to make. And you've got to be patient, and you've got to just keep going. And sometimes you do reach a limit. Like you just that's what that body's capable of. And you kind of got to go, okay, let's work with that.
Yep. And for today.
Yes.
I think I brought this up, and you and I have talked about this before, and that's one of the reasons why I thought this would be a good topic for today. Have an employee. When she first came to me, she didn't know what she didn't know. You know, the type of person she didn't know what she didn't know. And as she got better, she started fine tuning and everything. And there comes a point in their career, and I know this with almost everybody who I've mentored, where they go from one side of the pendulum to the exact opposite side of the pendulum, where the perfect form is micro, specific, and they get almost too caught up in the black or right. It's either right or it's wrong. And I've really had to sit her down a number of times and say, okay, there's a gray zone. It's not 100% right. It's not 100% wrong. There's a gray zone in between. And sometimes close enough is close enough. Don't let, perfect stop you from being good or great.
Right. Yes.
And that, I think, is what a lot of Pilates instructors, personal trainers, they get caught up in that when they get to that certain point, because they want to make those corrections and they want it to be so perfect without realizing that it's still good. Their movement patterns are still good.
Yeah. And it's kind of like as their eye gets better, right? As they get clearer on what they're trying to do, and they can see the issues more clearly. I'm teaching advanced movement principles. So everybody's learning, like their eyes are going, wow, I'm seeing more, I'm seeing more, I'm seeing more. And I do have certain fears that that's going to lead to a certain amount of going down the rabbit hole of like, okay, let's take your pelvis and move it a quarter, that real super refined work. Okay, learn something from that, but also be willing to just kind of like, all right, we're good, let that go. One other thing too is correcting to the point where people aren't moving.
Yes.
And I've worked with people of all different kinds. So when I'm working, for example, with somebody where this is their primary workout of the week, maybe they're seeing me twice a week, and I know this is pretty much all they do physically. Like the rest of the time, they've got a desk job or whatever. They're just living their life, but they're not particularly active. I
Mm-hmm.
know I need to do enough work to get some strength and some endurance and some resilience in that body. And
Yep.
Pilates does some of those things better than others, but I need to like get them moving.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times to do that, I'm not going to care so much as long as they're within safe bounds of perfection. I just want to make sure they're moving for that whole hour, because that's the only time their body's really getting that stimulation. Other
Mm-hmm.
clients, and I think of a lot of my dancer clients, they're working 20, 25 hours a week on perfecting everything outside of this. They're doing a million plies and a million whatever they're doing, or running or cycling. So they've got that basic foundation level of fitness, and we can
Mm-hmm.
spend the hour refining,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just kind of really getting nitpicky, because they're getting the gross motor, they're getting the rest of the stuff in the rest of their life. So that's another place where I just, look at what they're doing and what the purpose of this session is for them.
That's the word, purpose. What is their goal?
Right.
Are they here to see me? Rehabilitation, 90% of what I do. But
Right.
guess what? I'm not going to necessarily spend an hour just on their rotator cuff or just on their knee,
Right. Because
because
it'll exhaust them for one thing.
it's going to exhaust them. It may make them worse because it's
Exactly.
too much focus on that. And also, they've come to exercise. They want to get healthier in general. So
Yes.
guess what? We spend a portion of the time on that, but then there's another portion that we have to get them moving. We have to get their body, doing other things besides focusing so much. And you and I have talked in the past, sometimes their focus is only on pain, that they never move anything else.
Right.
So I want to get them beyond that. So when I am focused on their knee, for instance, I'm going to make sure, is their pelvis in the right position? Is their knee in the right position? Are they pushing through this part of the foot properly? All of this kind of stuff. And I'm going to be a little more hypersensitive on those. But when it comes to other things, I might be looking more for gross motor. I may be looking for more movement quality. How does it look? How does their body look moving in space? Because if it looks fine, I'm probably going to keep my mouth shut and make
Exactly.
small, tiny adjustments if necessary. Because sometimes it isn't necessary. And yes, I told you about the client last week who is constantly, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Is this
Exactly.
right?
That's a good
We
one too.
we get those. But at the same time, there's the other side. People don't want to hear that you're doing something wrong constantly.
Right.
Sometimes they need some positive affirmation as well. And just being said, man, that looked great. Man, even though your lower body is, man, look at what we did with core, whatever it is. It's like, that
Exactly.
looked really good. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, thanks. And you could see something made them feel good, giving them some positive reinforcement. Because again, when I'm talking about their injured part, I might be a little bit more nitpicky and a little bit more about that.
Critical. Yeah. Yeah.
Critical, perfect word. And so there has to be a balance. No one
Yeah.
wants the taskmaster who's constantly criticizing, but also no one wants the mamby-pamby who's everything is great. No, that's fine. There has to be a balance.
And there's a lot of ways I think about that balance. Like one of them is when I'm really working on a particular area, and particular area like the shoulder or the neck, which really can't take a lot of work. Like you shouldn't do
Mm-hmm.
an hour on the shoulder because it's just too much.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to focus on that for, let's say, 10, maybe 15 minutes in the session. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do a general warm up, like get the whole body moving first in a safe way
Yep.
for whatever that body part is. You get the blood moving, get things going. Then I'm going to do a little focus on that area. Then I might do some more general workout. Then another little focus on that area. Then like a nice little sort of cool down ending process. So I make
Yep.
sure too that I just structure the program so there's moments of focus and intensity, and there's moments when it's
Yep.
like, okay, you know this, you've got this. We're just going to do some footwork, or we'll do some whatever the exercises are, right? Some things they're familiar with or comfortable with, and they're successful at. And
Absolutely.
if you're looking at correctives, you also want the body to be ready to take those correctives in. So sometimes you've got to get enough blood circulation going and warming up the body, so then you can do the correctives. Instead of starting
Mm-hmm.
with tiny little moves when they're still cold. I'm also a
Mm-hmm.
little fussy about that.
Oh, I'm huge on that because I can't tell you how many times clients have said with their shoulder or something, things aren't healing. And I'm thinking, well, is there enough blood flow getting to the area?
Absolutely.
The shoulder,
Yeah.
especially the rotator cuff, doesn't get a whole lot of blood flow anyway. So
Uh-uh.
just doing something, here's a little ball, rub it against the wall, little gentle massage, get some blood flow to the area. And somebody would say,
Yeah.
man, that just makes sense. I was like, yeah, but not everybody is told these things. So no,
Right.
I'm a big believer in that. And if they can do certain movements, let them do it.
Right.
You know, that it's okay as if they could do sagittal plane, but not frontal. Well, move them in the sagittal plane for a little bit. Cool.
Right.
Get
They can
some
do
blood flow to the
split
area.
out arm work, right? Like, do some leg work, do some footwork, or do some squats or some
Every,
lunges. Get the blood moving, and that'll help everything, even if you're not doing upper body directly. Right?
yep. Now, something you told me, and you didn't tell me this directly. I've told this story many times in classes, but one of our first encounters was at a Coraline workshop before a POT, and it was in Denver. And I remember this because my mom lived in Denver and I brought her in because she wanted to learn too. And that was an interesting Pilates on tour because every Coraline had a helper, had an assistant. The person who was assigned to me and my mom has had many, many surgeries. She has some issues and whatnot from years of, using her body and whatnot, but she's had replacements here and there and everything. And at the time, I was almost 280 some odd pounds, 290 pounds, and I was going through some back issues and some knee issues and all sorts of things. So let's just say that we weren't the perfect Pilates people at the time. And the assistant who was working with us only worked with dancers. So let's just say my little buddy, I wasn't going to move like her dancer people were. There was no way. And by the end of probably lunchtime the first day, she was already checked out. She wasn't assisting us much anymore. And by the second day, she completely was ignoring us because she was frustrated. She couldn't get me to do what I needed to do for the exercise. And we were doing basically a lunge, a reverse lunge on the apparatus. And she was correcting me and overcorrecting me. She said, move your knee here. And I swear there was 30 individual cues. Yeah. My brain, as a movement professional, you'd think I could keep up. My brain was so fried. And you came up and said one thing. You said, oh, straighten out your back foot. And it corrected 80 to 85% of the movement with one correction. And that moment taught me, look for the one correction that makes the most difference, and sometimes leave it at that.
Exactly. One of the things, I had a number of teachers who did neurolinguistic programming, which I don't know a whole lot about, so I just threw that out there. It is what it is. But one thing they said, which I think was really true, and that's certainly been my experience, is the body and the brain cannot really take in more than really maximum 3 cues.
Yeah.
Like once you've gone beyond that, the brain shuts off, and you'll see this with your clients. I think of one instructor who I was working with, and she had a nonstop running dialogue of cues. She did not shut up. Put your heels here, put that there, put your weight there, put your heels there, and every single exercise she would talk through the whole time. And there's two things about that. One is, it doesn't, for me as a client. So when people do that for me as a client, I tune out. I just space out. I can't take in that much information. And it overwhelms me. And I also can't feel what's happening because I'm listening so much that I can't actually pay attention to what's happening inside. It gives them all the power because they're creating the situation. And it really, for me, disempowered me as a student. I didn't know what to focus on. Give me 1 or 2 things to focus on. And in many exercises, I'm like, okay, this whole session, this whole hour, we're going to focus on where is your pelvis. That's all we're going to focus on. And like you said, you find like the one thing, or you can focus on where your glenohumeral joint is. Like, okay, where is it here? Where is it there? Where is it here? Where is it when you're on all fours? Where is it when you're in plank? And sometimes find that one thing and just having that be the focus for a session or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, you make progress. And then you find the next kind of organizing principle and you work on that. And definitely not to be much more effective than every little cue.
Oh, by that one moment, learning that from you, that one day. Now, I'm not going to say that at that moment, I was able to understand why this worked so well for me. and my brain. But after I processed it, it changed the way that I cued everybody. And I began cueing much more concise, much more specific. And I'm not saying that I was someone who had on those run-on sentences, but I probably wasn't looking as clearly for the one thing, that one cue that made the biggest change. Because when you find that, giving those other 30 cues, who cares? They don't matter anymore. You corrected it all with one. And so when you're looking at that continuum, if 100% is 100% right and 0 is 100% wrong, if you can get to 80% by saying one sentence, that's huge.
Hallelujah.
That's huge.
Focus on it. Yeah.
And you focus on that first session. And then the next time you remind them of that and they integrate it in their body. Remember, we have something called a learning curve in the body where the first time you do something, you're awkward, you're gawky, your body doesn't really know what it's doing because your brain can't figure it out. Second time, I kind of got this, and you're a little more grooving. By the third time you've tried the exercise, it feels more native to you. It feels like I got this. This feels more natural. Well, if that 80%, now that feels natural, you can start making incremental changes toward the 100%. And maybe you only make it to 87. Who cares? That's still amazing. Sometimes you'll make it to 100. But getting that closer over time can be huge. And I'm going to tell you something, that 90 to 100 is the hardest for so many people, myself included.
In every situation, man.
And it can be
10%,
years.
Exactly. Yeah. The first 75%, you can kind of get that in 6, 8, 12 weeks. The rest of it can take you the rest of your life.
I remember doing squats, and man, I focused on it for so long. And it took me so long to get to the point where I was happy with the outcome. Am I 100%? Everyone's going to tell you what 100% is different. But for me, I finally felt I went low enough. My hips were engaging properly. Everything felt right, and I wasn't hurting myself. Everything was feeling good. Now I'm talking unloaded even. It just felt right. Good deep hip flexion, good hamstring lengthening. But that took years. I couldn't just snap a finger and make it work, because guess what? There were a lot of pieces to that puzzle that I needed to work on to get there. Again, you get to 75, 80%, great. But after that, you got to work on all the other things to get you there. And it takes a long time. So again, that last 15, 20% can be a real tough one.
And thinking about that, right? Thinking about how you make those corrections, how you choose what correction to make in any particular scenario. I sometimes use a scheme sometimes, sort of global to planar to local, right? So it's helping me to identify where the issue is. For example, like, okay, that movement just looks discombobulated. You see somebody walk and they're like, is there a hitch in their get along, right? Like something big, your eye goes, something weird's happening here, right? And then I kind of go, okay, so is it happening in the sagittal plane? Is it happening in the frontal plane? Is it happening in the transverse plane? And this doesn't work for everybody, but I realized, it's a rotational issue. It's like a clunk. It's a little funny rotation when that right hip goes forward or whatever it is. Okay, so it's in, it's in the rotational plane. And then it's like, is it the hip? Is it the spine? Is it the pelvis? Is it the hip? Is it the knee? Is it the foot? Like, where is that? Is it the torso? Like, where is that coming from? And so then I kind of try to look local. And what I wanted to say about that is, and that's kind of how I come up ideally with the one cue that will make the difference. But that, guys, remember, is a practice, and you're not going to get it right the first time necessarily. So, be willing to evolve. I can't tell you how many new teachers, especially, are like, well, what's the right cue to use here? I'm like, and again, I know different people think, I have no idea. What does that person respond to? Did that cue, like, if I say something, did it give me the response I want from the body in front of me?
Bingo.
Right? Because sometimes you can be as anatomically precise as possible. Take your right tibia, rotate it 1/4 of a degree to the lateral side when you put your foot down. Okay.
What does that mean?
Now, Right. I've got some engineers who think like that, and I can use
Yes.
that precision because they kind of need that in their brain that helps them. Other clients get you like, you want me to turn my foot out? Like, what do you want me to do? So it's
Exactly.
also like once you've kind of looked and figured out where you want to focus, then it's finding the language, the cue, the metaphor, because it's always metaphor that gives you the
100%.
response you want in the body. And
Yep.
that metaphor could be anatomically accurate or could be like butterflies in spring, like whatever it is that the body responds to, that's what you've got to work with.
I remember trying to get someone's transverse abdominis firing. I've probably got 30 different ways of saying it. Everything from make your abs smile to pull in your belly button to all these different things. And you know what? I use them all. And every now and then I come up with a new one just because none of these are working with this person. So you think of something new. And again, make your abs smile. 9 out of 10 people are going to say, what? But I got to tell you, there's one person who goes, I know, and they just do it. And you're thinking, okay, I don't know how that works, but it works for you. I'm good with that.
That's all I need to know.
And it was a PT that clued me in on that because she said something that we were working on transverse abdominis work. And she said, okay, from your hip bones to your belly button, those are elevator doors. Close your elevator doors. And I went, my brain, it worked. And I just said, wow, that's a unique way of saying that.
Yeah.
And after that, and this was, I mean, we're talking 25 years ago or something. But it was one of those things, click, okay. That worked for me. And I said it to a client and they looked at me like I was talking, to a cat. They just, huh? And I went, okay, that doesn't work for you. Got it. And I didn't say it out loud, but if I just kept saying it over and over and over to them, well, I may as well hit my head against the wall. It wasn't going to be any clearer the 5th time as it was the 1st.
No.
So the correct cue for that person is the one that gets them to move properly or the one that gets the result you're looking for. And it may take you a year to figure that out. It may take you one try. You never know. You got to keep trying until you find the right one.
One other thing, and I've told this story before, but I'll tell it in this context. The other one is, it's kind of like, working with a client is like planting a garden. Okay, you work with them, you teach them certain things, you get them familiar with certain concepts, they get movement patterns in their body, they learn to understand your language and what you mean, and you kind of create a language between the two of you that communicates effectively. And there's certain cues, and there's one client I think of always with this, who, I swear to God, I worked with her for 16 years and I gave her the same cue about her hip, at least every session, if not every other session. And then one day I said it a different way. And she looked at me and she said, why didn't you tell me that before? And she was angry that I had not given her that cue before. She was actively like pointing her finger going, why didn't you tell me that before? She was actively distressed with me. And I just had to smile. It was like, I have given you a variation of that cue at least once every other session. I was seeing her once a week for 16 years. And your body wasn't ready. I always talk about cues as being like a lock and a key.
Yeah.
And you can keep poking the key, like you can keep putting the key on the door, but if the lock isn't there for it to go into and open, like they haven't created from their side the reception for that particular thing, then you don't get there. And so that's the other thing about correctives is kind of being patient to keep tilling the garden, if you will, until
100%.
the body's able to understand that next piece and then to integrate it. And that's just time,
100%. A lot of this is time and repetition. That's the key.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes you saying the same thing over and over again in different ways, different phrasing, at different times.
Yeah.
And yes, we do have different exercises.
Yeah.
And I find that one actually helps sometimes more than anything else by taking them completely into a different exercise.
Yes, exactly.
But something that is reminiscent. I'm not going to say the same, but it's not like going from a leg press to a squat, but something just reminiscent of the same
it's got
thing.
Some elements that are related.
Yes. And I can say, can you feel how this? Oh, yeah. I say, now, when we do this other exercise, I just want you to think about how this one feels. You
Yes.
feel how you can use your toe a little bit more? And I actually had this on a client. She needed more glute engagement. She was having a hard time with that, and we finally got a little bit more of it, but she was still having a little bit of a rough time. I put her onto knee stretch, and I really had her focusing on, and I put a decent amount of weight on there, and I really focused on just pushing through, get that. And she said, I feel my glute. And I had never done that on her before, but I'd tried all these other things. And I said, it just hit me. I said, we're going to try this. And I said, now, when we go and do this, I want you to focus on that same feeling.
Yes.
And when we did, she went, I got it. So sometimes it was just something similar enough, but the exercise was completely different. I mean, a lunge to that, when I'm focusing on the back leg on the reformer, pushing back, but getting that gluteal engagement so she could really feel it, and thought, oh, okay. So now when we do it on here, as you're pushing out of this movement, this lunge, I want you to feel the same sort of feeling. She said, I feel that now. Hallelujah.
And that's where, like, I'm thinking of one client that I'm working with a bit, and in her case, tuning her into certain sensations, and then in some ways she has come up with the language or the
Mm-hmm.
cue that really, like, that's how she thinks of it. So then I use her
Mm.
language. I think about this, whatever the cue is, and then I say, okay, so use that cue that she's made up for herself because she owns that. And then again, we use that in this exercise and this exercise and this exercise. And
Yeah.
then she started a walking practice, like, okay, now do this when you're walking, or notice what happens when you're walking. Can you keep that same concept going in your mind? So again, it's not just making the correction, but it's then applying it in
Mm-hmm.
whatever they're trying to do in life, walking, squatting, running, jumping,
Yep.
biking, whatever it is, right? So taking it into their daily activities or their athletic activities so that they can get that crossover, because that's really where you get the benefit.
No question. No question. We've said it before, getting them to do the exercise properly is only part of the battle. It's really about transitioning them into activities of daily life. I don't care how much you can deadlift in the gym. If you hurt your back working in the garden with a 2-pound shovel and a small thing of dirt, that I'm not doing my job properly, because you're not transitioning the strength you're getting from one area to the
Yeah,
next.
it's not working.
And it's not working. So that's really important. And I'm not going to say that look, we all injure ourselves doing silly, dumb things, around the house, but you should be more resilient. You should be able to take whatever strength we're building here and be able to transfer it and utilize that in your activities of daily life. So yes, I think that is hugely important. And if you can find that cue that they can remind themselves, how many times have you heard from a client that you haven't seen in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Every time I go to the gym, I still hear your voice in my head.
It's frightening. It's frightening.
It's frightening, isn't it? Because I'm thinking,
really,
I am
it's like, oh
renting
my God,
space in
I'm
your head.
populating a strange amount of brains. That's slightly horrifying, right? It really is
Exactly.
slightly horrifying.
Exactly. It's like I am occupying a part of your brain. That shouldn't be, not after this
That
many
should
years.
not be. No.
But for whatever
Works.
reason, it works. Whatever phrasing worked, and they still remember, pull their shoulders back or head, whatever the cue was that
Whatever
I
it
used at
is,
that
yeah.
time. And it may not even be a cue I really use nowadays. And I'm thinking, ooh, I hope it's benefiting you, because I don't really know if I would say those exact words today. But hey, it's working.
Whatever works.
Whatever works. So yeah, I'm often amazed at what will stick with people and they will remember. So yeah, I find that interesting.
So I want to take a little, maybe the other side of things, because I've had a few
Mhm.
clients, and I can think of two particularly, that for whatever reason, I was not really very effective at getting their cues to stick. They were not very body aware. And that wasn't just me, because I saw them work with other people and just had the same issues. So
Mhm.
the other way to approach this, and sometimes I've had to do this more than once with a few different clients, or in certain areas for different clients, where they're just really not present in their bodies in that area for whatever reason,
Mhm.
is making exercises, using props, using positioning on the equipment, choosing exercises that are going to give them, that I know means they're going to be doing that exercise as safely as possible, even if they can't get the form how I might like it to be, but I know they're going to be safe. Doing the exercise, and they're not going to cause themselves any trouble. So this is like another end of things. But I've certainly had a few clients where it's like I just go blue in the face with cueing and nothing is working, because there are days like that where just like no matter what I say, it is not happening in front of me. So it's like, okay, so how can I try to get this concept into this client's body in a nonverbal way, possibly, or at least have them doing the exercise in a relatively safe way, where since my cueing isn't doing a darn thing, just keeping them safe and having them still move. I know that's like the opposite end of things. So sometimes it's like using a ball between the legs for alignment, or a ring around the thighs for getting some adductor activation, or feedback on where the shoulders are if they're doing like a press forward or something. So then using other things, if my verbal cueing isn't working, positioning, exercise choice, the equipment that you're using, to get the movement pattern as close to how you want it as possible, even if the cueing isn't working. So it's another way to think of correctives, because we often think of that cueing, but sometimes you've got to use like other things to help to get them there, even if they can't feel what they're doing.
Absolutely. And for some people, and this I remind people of, it could also be just that day. How many times have you had a client come in, and I had a teenager that I was working with for a number of years. He's in his late 30s now, which makes me a little frightened, but that's okay. I worked with him as a teenager, and he had a hard time with his body in space. He would squat one day, and it was gorgeous. 2 days later, couldn't squat to save his life. I'm like, okay, this is a basic thing. Get up out of a chair. Come on, dude. How hard is this? And this was many years ago. So frustration sometimes got the better of me. He just couldn't hold on to that in his body. Well, I have even to this day clients who are doing fantastic, but one day they're just not getting it. There's something it's almost like in sports, the yips, that people just can't hit the ball or throw the ball or whatever for whatever reason. And sometimes just let it go. Find another exercise. And those are the days that literally I will pick something that is so silly and so different. We have a long hallway here. Sometimes I'll say, okay, let's grab, we have a ball that's technically a medicine ball. It weighs like 2 pounds. It's the size of a basketball. Okay. But they say it weighs 2 pounds. I don't even think it weighs that. And it's slightly overinflated. I'll take it into the hallway and I'll say, I want you to throw this thing as far as you can. And they'll throw it. And I'll say, no, go get it. I basically treating them like almost a dog. I'm like, fetch.
Right.
And then they'll go get it. And say, now throw it back to me. And they'll throw it. And then I'll say, okay, come and get it. Now throw it again. They're getting movement. They're exercising.
Exactly.
I'm getting them out of their heads so they're not so frustrated on, I can't get this anymore.
Yes.
I literally had to just change gears, or I'll say, now kick it. Kick it over here. Now, can you kick it to that wall? Can you kick it over there? And there are times when I just have to get them out of their head, out of the space, go into a different room. If we're doing Pilates, I'll take them into the other room. If we're doing the other room, I'll take them in the Pilates room. Sometimes just getting them out of their head, change everything.
Yeah.
And then things start looking better. They stop thinking about it so much. They start moving a little bit better. And I can't emphasize this enough. There is no 100% when it comes to doing an exercise right. There is that gray zone. And you said it best. If they're doing it safely, they're not causing themselves harm.
Right.
So guess what? Even if that gray zone for this person is a little wider than it is for the other people, it's okay. It's all right. Over time, maybe we can shrink that down a little bit. But for today, maybe it's okay.
You also have to remember, and this is something that I always look at, is what's the reality of their situation, of their life, okay? If this client is in, serious pain a good bit of the time in their daily life, I'm going to be a whole lot fussier about making sure they're doing things as good as possible to decrease their discomfort level.
100%.
Somebody's going to be doing pretty well, and they're, but they don't move well, but they're not in pain, they're able to function, then I'm going to let some of that go, and let it
Mm-hmm.
over time improve. So it's also like
Mm-hmm.
choosing how much is that correction necessary. Because the other thing I think about this one teacher who was teaching running in place on the reformer, which is weirdly hard to teach. People do all kinds of strange and stupid things there.
Yeah.
Only one knee bends, no matter what. All kinds of strange things happen there often, and it is kind of an oddly hard thing to teach for a lot of people, for a lot of clients. And she got into a thing with this one client where she was trying to teach it. She got a little over intent about we're going to figure this out. The client was
Uh-huh.
absolutely not getting it. And I'm in the other room doing notes, I think. And it was like 20 minutes later on running in place, they finally got it. And it was one of those things where a very useful tool for all of you as instructors out there, and for your clients as well, but particularly for instructors, is gracefully removing yourself from a situation that isn't working.
Yes.
Right? So when you see the client
Yes.
just like, getting totally frustrated and constipated because they can't figure out what the heck you're trying to get them to do, or you're getting frustrated and constipated because they can't do what you tell them to do, like, hey, let's come over here, to your point, Brian, let's come over to this other piece of equipment. Let's go to the mat. Let's go into the personal training room. Let's just go out to the hall, right? Just
Yep.
a way to kind of break up that frustration, because that isn't good. That really doesn't get anybody anywhere.
And
and I've seen more clients and,
uh-huh.
and instructors just get into that, like, ball of frustration.
I've also had the opposite though.
Mm.
And you have to find a way to remove them when I'm going to figure this out.
Yes, that's what I mean. And it's
I'm
not
go
happening today.
and it's not today. It's okay, dude. I had one
Right.
person, he was a chiropractor, and I was doing I was doing marching where I didn't
Okay.
want him to push on the other foot and twist his hips. That's all we were doing.
Okay.
Simple. Okay. He had a lot of back issues, but simple exercise. Oh my gosh, 40 minutes. I'm not joking. I timed it. He would not let it go because every time his hip would twist, he'd say, nope, nope.
Yeah.
Nope. And after 10 minutes, I'm like, it's not happening today. Let's move. I'm going to get this. 40 minutes. And finally I said, I think we should stretch now. We're going to have to come back to this tomorrow. We did, I think, 2 exercises that session because he was so fixated. And I've had a few people like that just won't, they're a dog with a bone. They will not let it go.
Right.
You have to come up with a way to gracefully say to them, don't make them wrong.
Right.
But gracefully be able to say, today's not the day.
Right.
And we're going to come back to this next time. Your brain is tired, whatever. And I've used that one a few times, and I'll talk about, I had Ode Haugen was one of my former bosses. He owned the gym I worked at. He was world's strongest man competitor, oldest world's strongest man competitor, for qualifiers and all that kind of stuff. Wonderful guy. He worked out for 7 minutes. We had a room that was dedicated to strongmen in this gym. And I was in there doing something, and I saw him come in, and I know he hadn't done anything yet. And he did one exercise and 7 minutes. And then he left, and I thought I'd see him somewhere else in the gym because I went and I didn't see him. And then I saw him sitting in the cafe, and I thought, oh, he must have gotten a phone call or something or business. And I went over and started talking to him, and I just asked him, and he said, oh no, that's all my brain could take. He said, my nervous system can only take so much stimulation at one time.
Yeah, good for him for knowing that.
And he's learned that over the years. So he said, so for me, for that exercise, I know that when I get to a certain feeling and frustration level, I have to stop and just let it go for the day, and I'm done. He said, I might do a little bit something later on today, but I think I'm probably done. And I've used that example with clients, and I've said, your brain's tired. You're probably not going to get it neurologically today.
Exactly.
Not your body, but neurologically. It's tired. You ever get to the point where you're so tired, you just can't think? Well, your body's kind of that way now. And I pivot. And whether it's true or not for that client at the moment, they follow me at least. And I've gotten clients out of that situation. So finding something that works that can help you with that is going to help, because I've had a number of people dig themselves in that hole. And the more they dig, the worse it gets.
And some for me is like when you start to work with a client, and this is something that I'm pretty sure I do without thinking about it much anymore, is it's pretty clear in the first, second, third, fourth session with somebody how physically proficient they are, right? How able to take cues, how coordinated they are. Like, as you start to develop that vocabulary, that communication style between the two of you, you start to get that. So there's some clients where I know it's going to take a long time. Like I know that they are not going to get this concept for a while. So I'll give them light corrections. Like for the chiropractor example, I say, just keep your hips as level as possible. All right, that's pretty good. All right, okay, let's move on. Right, understanding like this isn't going to happen today, and you can see when that isn't going to happen. Maybe this trimester, right? This may not happen for like 7 months, right? And so some of it is just understanding. This is with experience. When you can push 100%. And kind of really get into the weeds with somebody, and when you got to just not even think about the weeds, stay in the field. We're in the field. We're just going to stay in the field. Right? Yes. Other people are going to okay, we're going to go down to the leaf on this plant and we're going to really dive. But for the rest of you, we're just going to kind of keep it broad.
And I think that's the way we really should think about correcting people in general. Yeah. It's the person in front of you. That dictates everything. Because some people can handle that. Like you said, if I have a dancer, if I have an athlete, I can get into the weeds. If I have someone who's recovering from an injury, I can get into it for that specific body part, that injury, whatever it is. Right. But a lot of times, that's not my goal for these clients. My goal is to get them to move better, to get them to move pain-free, and hopefully load those movements eventually so that they're able to get stronger and more proficient at movement. That's our job. That's our goal.
Exactly.
So I think that really it does come down to client dependent.
Yeah. So I think sorry guys, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I know I have. Because I think one of the things I always hear from teachers is, how much do I correct? How fussy do I get? Like, I think those are good questions. And to your point, Brian, I kind of wanted to put these ends on it. It is client dependent, and it really is understanding what that client's ability is to take in information, how proficient they are as a mover. And then, over time, you build up a rapport, you build up an educational foundation, if you will, and a sensation, vocabulary in their body that you can draw on to really help them get to the next step and take in the cues and stick them in their brain for the next 15 years.
Exactly. And sometimes it's just good to get them to move.
Yeah, exactly. Don't think that having them move in a slightly less than optimum fashion is always a bad thing.
Right.
Sometimes just getting somebody moving and getting the blood flow going and getting used to that complex movement pattern is really valuable. Even if it's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I love this topic. I thought it was really valuable. I think it's valuable not only for the newer instructor out there, but definitely people who have been doing this a while and may need a reminder, because I know I do every now and then. I think everybody kind of does. So hopefully you've taken something away from this. Do us a favor, hit that like and subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Share, comment. All of those things really mean a lot to us. You can always reach out to us, movingconvos@gmail.com, or check us out on Instagram at Moving Convos. For Nora St. John, I'm Brian Ritchie. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye, guys.